Order. Will you please stand and join me with the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Madam Secretary, for the night, I assume that FOIA publication notification of this meeting has been published, as is evidenced by the folks that are here. We'll go for the next item would be approval of the minutes of December 6th. Do any of the commissioners have comments, questions, clarifications? Hearing none, do I have a motion for approval?
I'll move to approve.
Do I have a second?
A second.
Second. All those in favor? All right. Approved minutes are approved for December 6th. Any additions to the agenda, commissioners? We have a full agenda, as you know, tonight. If there's any other pressing items you'd like to add? Okay, having none. This is a time in the meeting when we ask for citizen comments of a non-agenda nature. Non-agenda. It's not an item that's on the agenda, but if any of the members of the public would like to speak to the Planning Commission on a non-agenda item, this would be the time to do it. And I'll just ask in general, is anybody here who would like to speak on a non-agenda item? Okay. Seeing none, we'll move forward then to the action items. We have two on the live feed. We have two commissioners that would join us, so there are a total of 7 commissioners. I will ask that when the folks come up here, the process we'll go through is to hear from the county staff, and then we'll hear from the applicant or their representative. And then I'll ask for public comments germane to that particular issue. The procedure, please, when you come to the podiums, to identify yourself. And to please, if you can, because of the number of people we have here, limit yourselves to 3 minutes. And that would help us get through this program. You can see a lot of folks have interest here, and I'm sure a number of them are interested in speaking to the Planning Commission. All right. First action item, zoning map amendment, rezoning request for 11.66 acres at 100 Rostrum Drive from T2 Rural to T2 Rural Neighborhood. Applicant is Ben Kennedy.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the Planning Commission, and Happy New Year.
Thank you.
First item on the agenda is, as you mentioned, we received a request to change the zoning of 100 Rostrum Drive from T2 Rural to T2 Rural Neighborhood. Property is approximately 11.6 acres, and you can see on the map here, it is this property with the long access lane. Oh, thank you. The map on the top shows that it's zoned T2 Rural, and the bottom is the requested zoning T2 Rural Neighborhood. And this is located on Bailey's Loop of Bailey Road, which it also sits right next to Rural and Critical Lands property, the Altamaha property, which is that light green property indicated as light green over there. Let's see. Is this work? Oh, okay. And here's another map. This is an aerial view of it. And you can see right there. And we also have drone footage. Oh, here's another kind of stick map, giving you some context to where this is located. SC 170 is in the very top of the map, and there's a portion of Jasper County that dips in on our side of 170. Go on to the next one. We had asked to to have some drone footage of the property, just so you can kind of see. I believe this was taken from Altamaha site, just kind of looking over at the property. It can give you an idea. It's very rural and it sits on the Okatee River. I believe this is looking from the Altamaha site towards this particular property.
So we're looking at Altima here.
Well, no, this is looking from
From
Altamaha
Altamaha.
property on to their property.
What part of it are we looking at? Is
The part closest to the marsh.
okay. So it's on this the very bottom tip of the map. Okay.
As you can see, it's located on the marshes of the Okatee. I think you can get kind of a good overview of the property just from this footage. So a little bit about the current zoning. T2 rural is basically primarily a residential district. It allows one dwelling unit per 3 acres. So on an 11.66 acre property, they would be permitted to have that divided into 3 lots. The requested zoning, T2 rural neighborhood, allows 1.2 dwelling units per acre, and if you do the math, that allows 13 lots on this particular piece of property. That's just based on the gross acreage. Given that it has a long access road, it may or may not yield that many lots, but that's what would be permitted under that zoning district. One important thing to note is that the T2 rural neighborhood district has very specific criteria for how it's defined. And if you look at the map, if we just back up here, the zoning map of the property, you'll notice that there are some dark green lots there, but they're kind of scattered around. And the reason that is that that district is defined by anywhere where we have existing lots of record that are 5 acres or less in clusters of 5 or more parcels. And so this particular property does not meet the criteria for that district. Because it's meant to apply to lots of record. And it was created to allow some greater flexibility for small properties in a rural area that would have been disadvantaged by the 1 per 3 zoning density. So from our standpoint as planning staff, we would not look favorable on this rezoning because it doesn't meet the criteria of the district. We did relay this to the applicant that they have a right to go through the rezoning process, so that's where we are today. As far as staff recommendation, our recommendation is denial based on the definition of the district and the criteria, but also it's important to note that if we did allow this rezoning, it would really set a precedent that any rural property could be rezoned to T2 rural neighborhoods, which would have real ripple effect in our rural areas. And I think it would really undermine the comprehensive plan of what we're trying to do in the rural parts of this county. So that's staff's recommendation, and if you have any questions, I'd be willing to.
Any of the commissioners have questions? Yeah.
Is this in any form spot zoning?
Well,
Yes
not
or no?
necessarily.
Just yes or no? See, we've turned projects down because of spot zoning. So
If it's a yes or no question, the answer would be no, because it does about
Okay.
T2 rural neighborhood properties.
And see that-
There are other criteria.
Yeah, I know that, I understand there's other criteria, but I wanted to make sure of that. And if we put that map back again that shows both zoning districts?
This one right here, or back?
Yeah, that one's fine.
Okay.
If we look at that map in general, not the PUD or whatever, I guess is back up in there, whatever that is. But there's a lot of lots in there, not just a few that are smaller than,
Yeah, and a lot of
I
those,
count 1,
either
2,
they're-
3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, just adjacent to that. So I just want to point that out and make it clear.
Yeah, some of those may have been subdivided after the original, when this district was created.
When it was created.
The idea was it applied to lots of records. So any new subdivision created even, using the rural zoning, it may result in some smaller lots.
So-
They don't meet the criteria.
So the dark green is subsequent to
Yes,
that's T2RN, subsequent to the rezoning process.
yes.
So that's what they're going for too, and they're adjacent to that. What about the other light green ones that are there? What you're saying, they may have gone to T2,
The other
Period.
light green.
well, just like on the panhandle, let's say, on that way in. I drove the property. And it is rural, and it's beautiful.
Yeah.
But there's a big mix in there. It's not,
Yes, yeah. I mean,
it's not all that, what you know, 1 per 5 acres or 1 per 3 acres. Okay. All right.
A lot of this property was family property, and it's actually a pretty old community.
Any other questions? Anything from the commissioners on the audio? I can't see them.
Yeah, Ed, can you hear me? It's Evan.
Yes,
Yeah. Besides the 1.2 units per acre that they would get in a rural neighborhood, what else could he put in there?
Well, actually, in terms of uses, the T2 Rural Neighborhood District has fewer options than T2 Rural. T2 Rural kind of has a lot of very rural uses such as agriculture, which that would be permitted, but it allows things like ag support industries. So it really doesn't open up the door to new uses that wouldn't be allowed in rural. It's the main impact would be a greater number of residential lots.
That's the concern I have. I drive up 170 almost every day, and the thought of just putting another car on there it's just until a plan comes up for 170. The master plan was drawn this way for a reason, this is not about one change for 11 acres. You're talking hundreds of acres from right in this location all the way down to 278. I got a problem with it.
okay. Thank you. All right, I guess we're ready to hear. Are there any other questions from the commissioners? No? We're ready to hear from the applicant?
Yeah, the applicant's here. It's Michael Carnimus. Can you hear me?
Yes. Are you representing Mr. Kennedy?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So good evening. Michael Carnimus, president of KRA Architecture Design. So we're bringing this parcel up tonight, hopefully rezoning. I wanted to give you a little background of the property. I can't show you my screen, but you do have a map called Concept and Circulation Site Plan that was submitted with the application. The owner, Mr. Kennedy, his goal as part of this rezoning, if you do the math real easy, 11.66 acres is just 0.34 shy of 12, which would give Mr. Kennedy 4 units on the property. Mr. Kennedy is actually asking for a total of 6 units, 2 more units. Now, if you follow me a second with the math, based on the access road, which he owns, the Rostrum Road, a 50-foot right-of-way from the main exit at Bailey's Road all the way to a common dock, which is permitted on the property, and a common cemetery with an open park proposed. We eat 3.55 acres of the 11.66 acres. leaving 8.11 acres to be developed. If you took the 8.11 acres and divided it by the T2RN, which is the only zone we could rezone to, you're allowed 6.8 units. So the owner is asking for 6 units or 2 more units than it's what's zoned for. With that being said, we have 50-foot buffers completely around the property. These lots are 1.5 acres each, which are equal in totality to the property. Every neighboring lot is larger on this road by twice the size of the new proposed lots, okay? And everyone's owned by a different family. So this is not a family compound. Also, please note that, as Rob Merchant said, all the zoning was done beforehand, and since this lot was greater than 5 acres, it was put in a T2R designation rather than T2RN designation from the previous zone. So with that being said, Mr. Kennedy is just looking to add 2 more lots, keep it a dirt road, keep it a family kind of neighborhood, put in a dock for the community, put in a park for the community, and have a total of 6 lots on the property. And I could answer any more questions, but that's pretty much where we are with the numbers.
Questions? Kevin, Frank, have any questions?
No, not for me.
Okay, this is a point where I would open up for comments from the public. I want to make just an announcement for that, is that I've received over the last week 6 different letters in depth from various residents on or near Ruston, 100 Ruston, very vociferously opposed to the further development of this property and increasing the density and subdividing the property up into additional lots. Those names from those people, for the record, I'm not going to read their letters. It would take a while to read all the correspondence I've received. If I miss a name of someone that I mentioned, from the list that I mentioned,
They have the address.
please let me know.
Yeah, the address where they are.
Yeah, I do. Mark Clark was one of the parties, Nancy Thomas, Elizabeth Putman, Charlene Schmatzenberger, and George and Jules Fandos. I received letters from those folks who live in the vicinity of Rostrum Drive. I also received from an organization, the Coastal Conservation League, a letter of objection. Are there other people who would want to speak out on this issue, either for or against? If you would like to do that, this would be a time. As I say, come up and announce yourself. And please commit to no more than 3 minutes. Thank you.
Hey, how you doing? My name's Carson Stone. If we could put the map back up, if you don't mind. I live on the first lot there with my wife and 2 girls. Those lots are bigger than they look. Ours is 3 acres, and the neighbor, the second one on the right, is 3. It's pretty rural through there.
Which lot specifically?
The top right
Top right, okay.
of the yellow.
Yeah, okay.
I didn't realize they had a road there. So if they've got 11.5 acres, I imagine a large portion of that is eaten up on that road. That's the path that leads down until it cuts off to the side. It'd be a lot of traffic. It's a dirt road now. I would think each one of those houses is gonna have at least a couple cars. So we'd like to not see a neighborhood at the end of a dirt road, personally. But I just wanted to share some input.
All right, thank you.
My name is Kendall Birch, B-U-R-C-H. I'm a 5-generation Beaufort County resident in this area, and I live on the Chechessie River around the corner from here. You can't see it on the map. But I'd like to say one thing about the conservation status of the area. I don't know if anybody's aware of this, but if you go south of the Okeechobee River, just off the map to your left is where the Kalawasi Cut is. It cuts back around the Kalawasi Island. Presently, right now, if you want to go pick oysters in that area, it's closed. They are polluted. There's bright yellow signs with red writing on there, basically saying you can't harvest shellfish in this area because of the runoff, primarily from the golf courses and all the houses that already exist in the area. So I think what we'd like to say is, I would hate to see more density in that area. It already has a negative effect on the conservation of the wetlands. And like I said, a lot of the oyster beds between this location and back around to the Big Chichessie, a lot of them have been closed by DNR already because of fecal matter found in the oyster beds. And more houses are only going to make that worse with the fertilizer and the other stuff. So from a conservation standpoint, I would really like to see it not go through. And the other thing I'd like to say is I think this opens up a can of worms for the rest of the county. Because if you're able to do this in this area and move it out of T2R, you'd be able to do that in other areas of the county as well. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Birch. Yes, ma'am. Please identify yourself.
Hi, my name is Michelle Krobe. I also live on Rostrum. I live on the third lot. I have 2 acres, and our concern is the amount of traffic up and down that road as well. It is maintained by the state. They do come in and grade it, but it makes the road very rough, and then having all that traffic up and down the road, and plus we have children, grandchildren, and we're concerned about that as well. So developing all those houses down there, I think is going to cause a problem. So we are fully against all that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Would anybody else like to speak up? Jesse?
Good evening. Can you hear me okay if I leave my mask on?
I can hear you.
Okay. Thank you for the opportunity to comment on behalf of the Coastal Conservation League. My name is Jessie White. I'm the South Coast Office Director. We ask the Commission to deny this request for rezoning. As laid out in the staff report, it's not consistent with the 2040 comprehensive plan, which designated this portion as remaining rural in nature. Allowing the rezoning request would amount to a 3-fold increase in density from what's currently permitted. Also, as clearly articulated by staff, the rezoning request is in direct conflict with the county's development code and the intent of the T2 Rural Neighborhood Zoning District, which is expressly intended for existing clustered communities in rural areas and not intended to promote tract development or rezonings. Moreover, this rezoning this individual parcel could establish a dangerous precedent and open the door to subsequent rezonings on any T2R properties in the county. This would further erode and strain our rural areas, induce sprawl, and threaten critical natural resources. If allowed, it would completely undermine the purpose and intent of T2 Rural Neighborhood Zoning District. Understanding that this particular applicant might have a suitable plan in theory for the area, it opens the door to all other T2R properties. And it's really important as a county to hold those rural boundaries, and it's a core theme of the comprehensive plan. It's also important to minimize the strain on schools and emergency services and to help protect water quality in the OPT and Colleton rivers. The current zoning and future land use designations are correct, and we agree with planning staff that it should remain in place and this rezoning should be denied. Lastly, I just want to offer our full support for 2 additional items on the agenda, the green print plan and the downzoning request for the rural and critical lands properties to T1 Natural Preserve.
Thank you, Jesse. Are there any other public comments?
Good evening. My name is Haley Smith, and I too live at the 3rd lot on Rostrum. I have lived there for 15 years. My parents actually bought the property. It is a one-way road, one way in, one way out. If we put more houses at the end of it, one, there's not enough traffic, and there's a lot of young kids down our road. I have 2 4-year-olds, Carson and Shelley have 2 young girls, and with the increase in traffic, we're concerned about, one, the space for the cars down the roads, and also the amount of traffic and how fast people go. There's already, a little bit of issue there anyways. I request that you please deny it. If you've driven down the road, you see how beautiful it is. You see that there's not developments and properties every half acre. You see that there's space. We have livestock. I mean, there's a lot back there, and we would just like to keep it like that. And so we hope that you guys please deny it. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further comments? All right, seeing none, bringing this back up to the commissioners. Would you like to make any comments before we make a motion? Cecily?
Rob, I guess I wasn't quick enough to do the math when the applicant ran the math, but the applicant, I think, said this would they have 4 are permitted under current zoning, and this is an addition of 2, but in your comments, and my understanding is that only 3 would be permitted under current zoning.
That's correct.
So could you explain?
So they don't, it would have to be 12 acres to get the 4 lots.
That's what I thought. Okay.
The current, yeah.
Okay.
And it isn't 12 acres, it's 11.66.
11.6.
Got it, okay.
Other comments?
I sympathize with the locals. I understand where you're coming from because I've lived on rural roads also and raised kids as well. When you talk about traffic, we're talking about 2 or 3 houses. We got another matter in front of us tonight for a couple of 100 houses. That's traffic. You're in a rural area. By the nature, you go slower and you become a good neighbor. And I don't feel that T2 are in is far off here. It's not a large tract of land. It's not a large development. I see green next to it, so there's other zoning adjacent to this property, and that's where I have a trouble because we turned down, if there wasn't any T2RN adjacent to it, I'd say no in a minute because that's spot zoning and we don't do that. But this is not spot zoning, so this is a little gray. So I'd want you to consider thinking about that, commissioners.
Frank? Kevin?
I guess my only comment would be, I hear what Randolph is saying, but nobody presented this as spot zoning. Nobody called it spot zoning. It shouldn't even be part of the discussion. If it was part of the discussion, this would have been over 20 minutes ago. The issue here is, it was, it's 1 here, 2 here, 3 there. Go look at the numbers for what's already been approved in development agreements for Beaufort County. It's thousands and thousands. And making a change like this is not adding 1 or 2. You're going to add hundreds to that number. Hundreds. Because how many lots are bigger than 5 acres between here and 278? And that's how many applications you're going to get. So, this area up here is stressed to the limit. 170, I mean, God almighty, people think it's a highway. It's not a highway, it's a local road anymore.
Thank you. I'd like to offer a comment. I'm in a disagreement with Randolph on this issue. I've driven the property. I note the tremendous conservation needs for that property. As it reaches out to the Okatee, where the county has spent millions of dollars in trying to protect the Okatee by buying properties through the Rural and Critical Lands Preservation Board to ensure that the water isn't further polluted or damaged from its current state. I evidenced the pleas of at least a dozen residents who've either written or spoken up regarding the properties that they live that surround this property and the need to maintain the property in its current state in terms of its zoning. I also note the precedent setting that this could establish on all rural properties and for people who wanted to subdivide their property in order to increase the density and for further development. I'm not ready and would not recommend moving in that direction at all. For these reasons and for the final reason being the staff's recommendation to not approve this, I'm voting against this application. With that said, are there any further comments?
I'm ready to make a motion, Ed.
Please.
I make a motion that this application for an upzoning from rural T2R to rural T2RN be denied.
Do I have a second? I have a second, Gail. All right. Any further comments? All right, hearing none, I'd like to vote. All those in favor of the motion, please raise your hand. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. All right. And those opposed? 1 opposed? The motion for approval of the rezoning is denied. We'll move on to the next issue. Thank you very much for those who attended on this issue. The next item on our agenda deals with Osprey Point, known as Malin Bluff at this point.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Land unit development, master plan amendment is being requested
Didn't he say 5?
to 17.2 acres to replace 207,700 square feet of commercial development with 200, it says 206, but the application reads 204 multifamily units. Applicant Robert Deeb.
And question on the staff report, I think I have Josh Tiller's name on here, but he's not involved in this project side of it.
Okay.
He's been involved in other parts of this development, but not this. So just to give you a little background, on this map, we have kind of a location map. This is on the 170 corridor going north from 278. And on the map here, you can see where Oldfield is, River's End. This is south of there, Malin Bluff. This is a planned unit development that was approved going back to 2008 by county council. It used to be zoned rural, and back then, this development, along with Okatee and River Oaks, all came in three together and upzoned the PUD. And at the time, it had the background. These three were supposed to be interconnected and be a mixed-use community, with a mix of housing types and commercial. And since that time, of course, the Great Recession hit. The northernmost of the three PUDs was purchased by the county, and that's now county property, with the front portion being the animal shelter. And so now we're left with, at the time it was called Osprey Point, now it's called Malin Bluff and River Oaks. Malin Bluff was then amended in 2014 to change from a mixed-use, mixed housing type development to the front 17.2 acres being commercial, and then the remainder of the site being single-family housing. And then it was also modified in 2019. But that's the current PUD now has 345 single-family residential units, and then the front 17.2 acres is approved for 207,700 square feet of commercial. So that's the current PUD as it is. And then since approval, that was purchased by Pulte Homes, and they've been developing the residential portion of this development. This map here kind of shows a comparison. So the existing master plan, what's approved today, is a 207,700 square feet of commercial. Being a planned unit development, they adopt a master plan which shows the location of buildings and streets. What is being proposed is to do away with the 207,000 square feet of commercial and replace it with 200 4 multifamily residential units. So it's kind of a straightforward master plan change. And access to the site, the only change here, both of the existing and proposed call for a parallel road to 170 that connects Pritchard Point Road to the entrance to the Malin Bluff. And that remains, and that would kind of be the divider between, the commercial or multifamily portion and the single family portion. One of the things about this new proposal is it does away with a right in, right out access that, located halfway between those 2 entrance points. As far as traffic impacts, one important thing to note is the traffic impact study was done for this PUD. And so in comparing the two, 207,000 square feet commercial to 204 multifamily residential units, it is actually a reduction based on the ARMS manual and the traffic generation of those uses. So we're looking roughly at 791 peak hour trips once the commercial development is developed, compared to, with the 204 multifamily units, that's 90 peak hour trips. So there's a reduction in the traffic generation. One thing that's important to note is that any internal trip capture, so if there were commercial development here and people in River Oaks or Malin Bluff were to use, whether it's a grocery store, whatever that is, that would take traffic off of 170, but that's no longer going to occur if that commercial goes away. So, but either way, the net result in this change in the master plan is still not triggering a traffic impact analysis. And it's our position it's not going to result in more traffic generation than what's already been approved. The applicant is interested in developing multifamily housing. They have expressed an interest in doing and this is where it gets interesting with the school district, with doing a tax credit project, which would be affordable housing. The school district, they reach out to the school district, which the superintendent and one of the school board members have indicated support for this type of housing because they're concerned about the difficulty of teachers in finding housing that's affordable in the area. So, being affordable housing, the school district, was more supportive of that than if this were simply market rate housing. But, and that also leads to, as far as staff comments that, otherwise, I think that we're all familiar with any development in this area. OKT Elementary is at capacity, so any new development is further going to put stress on the elementary school and also on the middle school and high school that this neighborhood would feed into. So as far as the school district, typically they would be in opposition or be concerned about the capacity. In this particular development, they've expressed support because of the affordable housing. As far as staff recommendation, there are 4 things that we're concerned with, and I would say that we're recommending approval with 4 conditions. The first is that the Community Development Code has very specific site planning standards for multifamily housing, and when you're dealing with a planned unit development, the goal is to provide for innovative site planning, and what I see here with the multifamily is your typical apartment complex. If they follow the requirements of our code, it would mean that these need to be built around streets and blocks with parking at the side or rear of buildings. I'd have it indicated to the applicant that is something that we would be looking for in the development. And so if this does move forward, we would request that the master plan be modified to meet those requirements. And also, if they are going to amend the PUD, and this PUD is also accompanied with a development agreement, that if it's the intent of the applicant to develop affordable housing, we would like that solidified in the PUD and the development agreement documents. Because then that, the support that they're getting from the school district, if this were market rate, and that's not something that they're supporting. In addition, the existing PUD has a dedication of 1/2 acre parcel for public safety, whether it's sheriff, fire, or EMS. I've seen nothing on this proposed master plan that mentions that. And we would like to see that remain on the development. And then also, they're going to need to modify, let's see, they're going to have to modify the development agreement, because right now it locks into the existing PUD language. So those are the 4 staff conditions that we're putting on recommendation. And with that, I entertain it.
Questions?
I have a question, Ed.
Sure. Go ahead, Frank.
Shouldn't we be waiting until, you're adding 4 things that you want to see? Shouldn't we be waiting till those 4 things that you want to see, Rob, are in the plan?
Well, the Planning Commission has 2 options. One is to, you do have the option to, delay action for 30 days. So that's one option, or the other would be to attach these conditions and request that they be made, or that be part of the record when it goes to the Natural Resources Committee and County Council.
One more comment. Do you know how many affordable
Question.
units will be in there? Did Pulte state that, or have they? This is not a Pulte project.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah.
I think they could shed light on that.
Yeah, I want to follow up on that question.
Me too.
Yeah, I think that's a very important consideration. You said that the school support was based on an assumption of tax credits and for affordable housing, and that's why they were looking more favorably on this. Is anybody from the school district here tonight to speak to that issue? Well, the fact that they're not concerns me. I would like to be part of the understanding of what percentage of these houses would be considered affordable housing. I see affordable housing throughout the application for affordable housing. There's affordable housing, there's benefit, Beaufort County affordable housing. We're talking 10, 20%. We're talking about 20, 30, 40 homes. That's not going to put a dent into the needs for Beaufort County for affordable housing, not a dent. In fact, it's insulting that they'd want to put up all of these homes without that further consideration for affordable housing. So I'm looking hard at that issue. Excuse me. I think from the other comments, I note your conditions, and I do agree with Frank that that number of conditions, without knowing specifically what the intent is or what their response to those conditions, puts me at a disadvantage for knowing whether I should approve this. I can't assume that they're going to agree with that or not. So I need to hear more from the applicant as to whether those conditions can be met that you're putting in there. The Article 2, Division 2.4, the Community Development Code is pretty thorough and notes about the thoroughfare network, the access and circulation parking, garage standards, service area, building configuration. A lot of things there that I don't see here being addressed. And again, the affordability, is it 10%, 20%, 100%? Big difference. Big difference.
It's my understanding it's 100%, but I would rather the applicant speak to that. So.
I also note that in the affordable housing requirements found in Article 4, Section 4.1.350G, there are significant submittal requirements and procedures and enforcement procedures that need to be attended to based on the code that was written not too long ago, a year or two ago. I'd like to see more response to that particular issue. So I have a lot of questions here that I haven't heard answers to or don't see in the application. I also have a concern about no traffic impact analysis. I mean, how do you know? As I understand, when this master plan for PUD was put together some 15 years ago, you indicated, there was a big understanding there that this is going to be a self-contained community. This was going to have places where people could walk to shopping facilities, and they could, it wouldn't require a lot of trips out on the highway, which was a concern, because the 170 is a narrow corridor, and it's increasingly becoming, in that particular area between the Lemon Island Bridge and 278, an extensively developed property. Every piece of property, a major piece of property, is up for sale. And as well, we have Jasper County abutting that. Up and down Argent Boulevard, there's literally hundreds and hundreds of homes going in. It's becoming nightmarish for traffic, and the accidents are increasing. So I have lots of concerns here about increasing density in homes without a thorough analysis of traffic impact analysis that addresses the point you mentioned that's not addressed, what will be the impact of taking away that interior shopping capability and putting up another 204 units. Those are my comments to you. With that in mind, I'm hopeful that the applicant who is here can address some of these issues.
We get another crack at the apple, right?
Yes. Is the applicant here?
Good evening.
Good evening.
Council members, Chairman Bob D. I represent the developer over here, BBR Development, and the principals. As a preliminary matter, just to give you some background on the developer here, they've done numerous affordable housing developments, both in Indiana and one existing here in Beaufort County that y'all have approved before. It's called Main River Village, just outside Bluffton. And there's two more that are pending here in Beaufort County, along with this over here. Main River Village is an extraordinary, successful affordable housing development on Beaufort Road. And if I could just give you here a binder showing that type of development, so you understand this is high-end development for affordable housing. It meets all federal criteria and all state criteria. So they've got a history there. So we pull off what they promised to do here, so expect to do here. This is a down zoning, and I understand the concerns about traffic, but anyway. The staff recommends it's going to be, instead of commercial, you're going to have residential development here, approximately 206 affordable housing units. Not all going to be affordable housing, but we guarantee it'll be at least 60% affordable housing.
60%?
60% at least, if not more. It's going to be developed in two phases. The first phase will be approximately half the 206 units. That'd be 103 or 100 units, all of which will be affordable housing. The application process for tax credits with the federal government and with the South Carolina Housing Development Authority is very complicated, so we don't know exactly how the mix will be in the second phase of it. But the first phase will be all affordable housing. All right, and that's, yes, you know, it's based on the median income in the county, whether it's 60%, 70%, or under 80%, 80% or less. So that will be the goal. It's not going to be 10% or 20%. It'll be over 60% for full development and maybe even more. So we can promise that. But we can't guarantee that right now at this phase. Staff, Mr. Merchant, said there's several ways we can come back and revisit that. So we'd rather maybe take that up at a later time as to the exact mix, depending on what the application process gives us. I mean, what we know as far as what we can get from the federal government, from South Carolina Housing Development Authority. The site plans, the staff recommended that we go with the current development code, and we're kind of grandfathered in, we believe anyway, under the PUD that was first started in 2008 and then augmented back with the amendment in 2011, I think it was. You know, the PUD is a whole, and to segment this differently and make this conform to the current plan, to the current CDC rules, doesn't allow us the flexibility that we have to develop all these units as we would like. In other words, to build, and our land planner can talk more about that, but to move the buildings so you can have alleyways and roadways behind them and walkways, just doesn't work with the 17-acre rectangular parcel. We can do some movement around there, but it kind of constricts us as to how we put the buildings there. And there are some plans which we can show you in just a minute that will show that. So we need some relief from that. The other two concerns that the county has regarding the development agreement, certainly that needs to be amended because it's a PUD is part of the overall development agreement, and we'll work with the county on that. And the other one was the guarantee of affordable housing, and yes, we are doing an affordable housing development here, which would be at least 60%. We believe this is a down zoning and should be approved at this point, maybe with some conditions that you revisit it regarding, again, the site development plans. And that's about it. I'd like to have Eric Walsonich from Partners talk a little bit about the site plans so y'all can see what it's actually looks like on the ground.
Okay. Got a bigger copy too, but we can put the plan up as well.
Okay.
You pull that.
Okay, this land plan is based, it's a conceptual master plan.
It's very, very hard to see,
It's
Andy.
upside down.
Can you pick
Well, no, it's not upside down to you, it's upside down to us.
That's right.
It's just hard to see.
That one's,
There we go.
That's the wrong one. That's not that.
So, it's a conceptual master plan. I'm Eric Bolsnovich with William Partners. We're land planners, landscape architects, so help him. We work with David on several projects, the developer. And this conceptual master plan was following the ZDSO.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Code at the time of the PUD. In this plan, we get 206 units, and if we did do some sketches in-house just to see what form-based code would look like on this difficult site between the wetlands. It's kind of squashed and rectangular. And with form-based code, you have a streetscape with parallel parking, trees. Sometimes it's 50, 60 feet wide to get all that stuff in there. And then you have your building, and then you have service behind it. And in our opinion, it's actually increasing the impervious surfaces than this code does, which is a concern. And we heard about that with the first applicant. We're really concerned about stormwater. We're doing everything we can to be BMPs. But with this site, there's certainly a place for everything. And we like the form-based code. It's just this site works better with the way it's zoned currently by right. So it increased impervious, and then we end up with lesser units. So it's a little bit of a trade-off there. David can speak to the numbers a little bit better. But we do have a walkable community. There's sidewalks, along the streets, along the park. We connect everybody to the amenity center, which is very nice. It has a pool, clubhouse, mail area, fitness center, possibly, and a playground. So the whole site connects over to that and could connect back to the rest of Maitland Bluff on a sidewalk that is already existing on Maitland Bluff Drive. We did eliminate the right-in, right-out on 170. That was a concern. So we were entering, there's an existing curb cut on Maitland Bluff into the site. And then Road A, which is being built to connect Pritchard Point to Maitland Bluff. We come in off of that as well,
That's this one.
which is running parallel to
Yeah.
170.
Goes right past the dog park or the animal shelter, Pritchard Point.
Correct, Pritchard Point goes past the animal shelter.
And all the
This
way
is a
back.
road that's being built now, it's engineered and being installed as this gets built out. So we're coming in off of that, and then there's an existing curb cut here that we're utilizing.
Where's the access to the school? You said community walk to the school.
Well, I didn't say to walk to the school, I meant walking back to the community, so
Well, I think it was said earlier that there would be a place, they're capable of walking to school.
I believe the school, is over on this side.
The school is situated right about in this area. It's not on the plan. The sidewalk that Eric was just describing is along this road right here. Our development would tie right into that sidewalk. The road from here to the school has not been constructed yet.
Okay.
The school has the onus or responsibility of installing that road, but I don't know the timeline.
Can you repeat that?
I'm sorry.
What you just said, could you repeat it, please?
I believe we
Who's
don't have the
responsible?
authority or the responsibility to install the road from this point to the school. That's the school's responsibility.
But there are sidewalks there.
Ready to do.
Now, on your side, are there sidewalks continuing?
Yes, so there's the sidewalks here, our sidewalks come up.
And then does it keep
continue
going?
up into
Keeps going, okay.
Mainland Bluff residential. Yeah.
Okay.
Ed,
Sorry.
Ed, when I can make a comment, just let me know.
Did you want to finish?
No, I was
Okay, I was
just,
good.
I got
Do you have
comments.
another comment that you wanted to make to him? No?
No, I'm good.
Go ahead.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Kevin.
Yeah, we all, love to see more affordable housing in Beaufort County. As was mentioned here several times, the word affordable housing is numerous times mentioned in this application. I guess the real basic question is by whose definition are you talking about affordable housing? Are you using the numbers that the county has established? Because the county has a whole plan and a whole program with certain income levels, with certain rents and things like that. I don't want to go into the details of that now, but I think if anyone is going to use the term affordable housing, they need to define it because it means a lot of different things to a lot of people. I know one thing, I don't know if I would want to put an affordable housing development as bad as we need it on literally sitting right on top of a 4-lane highway with a 60-mile-an-hour speed limit where they drive 70 and 80 miles an hour, which is very well might be could be 6 lanes in a couple of years, the way 170 is being expanded. I mean, I'm looking at this map and I have my own map up here. I mean, we really got to stop and think about this, guys. Do we really want to put an affordable housing unit here? I mean, probably with young children, we're talking a playground and stuff like that, right on 170? I don't know. I mean, there's a reason why this was approved as a mixed use and everything, because like Ed said, this thing was sold. I remember when this was being sold. Well, yeah, you're going to be able to walk to the store. You're going to be able to walk to the school. Oh, by the way, the school's at capacity. You're not going to be able to get in. This development has already turned 170 into a 1-lane roadway 2 times a day, at 8 o'clock in the morning and 2 o'clock in the afternoon. You can't even, there's 1 lane going, you probably have a mile of traffic backed up going into that school there at Okatee, because of the development over here. I think we got to really rethink this. I don't think this is anybody that's ever talked about affordable housing. I don't think they ever envisioned it sitting literally right on top of a 4-lane highway, where people drive very fast. That's my only comment here. I mean, you guys bought this property, you had a plan and everything else like that. Just do what you said you were going to do. It's like, everybody seems to want to just revert back to, let's put more residential in. We could just, it's not going to be that bad. The traffic won't be that bad. It's just a couple of more units. A couple more here, a couple of more there. This area right now is so congested. I can't even imagine putting any more units of any kind in there, especially sitting right on 170. I'm done.
Thank you. Thank you. Sure. Any other comments or questions of the
As you define affordable housing, tell me a little bit about the timing. How long will it be affordable housing? Because that's another part of the definition that we haven't talked about. We've talked about the numbers.
Yes, ma'am. So first, let me thank you for the opportunity. Chairman Pappas, nice to see you, sir.
Yes, sir.
Our firm and its principals have been developing, financing, managing, owning affordable rental homes throughout the country for collectively over 50 years. We have a great deal of experience. We've developed and or financed over 10,000 apartment homes from one coast to the other. So we like to think that we know a little bit about what makes a good affordable housing location, both in terms of sizing up the demand by the community, as well as the other important features of a site. As to affordable housing, the Beaufort County Code does a good job of defining what affordable housing is in Beaufort County. And they set aside, they focus on 3 different set-asides. Households or families that earn 60% of the area median income or less. Households or families that earn 80% of the Beaufort County area median income or less. And households or families that earn 100% of the Beaufort County area median income or less. Those are what the county has laid out as affordable housing. As Mr. Deeb spoke earlier, our firm owns and operates May River Village currently, located in Old Town Bluff. At the moment, it is 108 apartment homes, a mix of 1, 2, and 3 bedroom apartments. We have a range of tenants that are from senior citizens to former military personnel, to teachers, to workers in our hospitality industry, workers in the retail industry, families, and anywhere in between. And we're getting ready to break ground on an additional 24 apartment homes at that development, which will bring the total to 132. I'd like to point out, importantly so, the county for the last several years has focused very hard in recognizing the need for affordable housing. It's identified a gap of several thousand apartment homes needing affordable housing. In southern Beaufort County, our development is the only affordable housing development that has been constructed in the last 12 years. And it is only 132 apartment homes stacked up against a demand of several thousand homes. We have a crisis in Beaufort County right now. So this development, this particular development, Glen Bluff, is designed to at least take a step forward in addressing that very important need. May River Village is 100% affordable at the 60% area median income level or less. Phase 3, which I just spoke about, will have a mix of homes at 30, 50, and 60% of the area median income. For this particular development, we have 204 apartment homes planned. We expect to finance that, to build that, in 2 separate phases. The first phase will consist of 120 apartment homes, clubhouse, swimming pool, and other common area amenities, a playground that Eric just described, pavilion, etc. 100% of those 120 units will be set aside for households or families that are earning 60% of the area median income or less. We're asking for a little flexibility as to phase 2, and let me tell you why. The build-out time frame for phase 1, assuming we were able to move forward from tonight, go through the balance of our approval at the Natural Resource Committee and 3 separate readings at the Beaufort County Council.
By the time we get through that and the balance of our permitting, we'll be fortunate if we're able to begin construction in the first quarter of next year. We expect construction to take somewhere between 12 and 18 months before we're actually delivering apartment homes for occupancy. Every year, the state agency, which is South Carolina Housing, they put out a document that they operate by. It's called the Qualified Allocation Plan for the state of South Carolina. And it focuses on helping the state achieve its priorities for affordable housing in the state for that coming year. The state's priorities, they change a bit. They always remain predominantly focused on affordable housing. That much is clear. But sometimes they like to include a priority. For instance, in the past, they'd like to see a mixed income component intermixed into the development. So rather than say 100% of the apartment homes in that particular phase, they might look for a small market rate component so that they're achieving a priority of having affordable housing with some market rate housing. Because it's predominantly supposed to be focused on affordable housing, we can know for certain that the majority of those apartments will definitely be affordable. But we need to have a little flexibility. We'd like to have a little flexibility. If the state does make that change sometime in the next 3 to 4 years before we're ready to start working on phase 2, we'd like to have the ability to have a small component be something other than potentially affordable. When I say small, I mean less than 25%. But we do want to be able to respond to changes that the predominant funding source may make in their allocation in the future. That's why there's a little bit of, for lack of a better term, vagary. Our business, our mission, and our heart's desire is to provide good, quality, affordable housing to families that need it. I think that's evidenced in the brochure that we passed out earlier. I'm sorry for those commissioners that are online that we couldn't disseminate that to you.
We'll get it to them.
We wanted to give you an idea of the quality that we're talking about. As to the form-based code, Eric touched on that a little bit. So we are working on another affordable development in the Lower Bay area. In fact, I think we were here before it was commissioned to receive the zoning approval for it 12 to 18 months ago or so, somewhere in the midst of the COVID pandemic. And we're beginning to work on our site planning at this point in time. We initially prepared a plan under what I'm going to characterize as a non-form-based code approach. And when we went to the SRT meeting, the staff informed us that we need to be subject to the new form-based code. And they're right. So we went back and Eric modified our site plan so that that plan would reflect the form-based code requirements. That effect is twofold.
Okay, excuse me for a second. How does this, about the other development, pertain to us here?
But I'll get to that.
Yeah, we need to, we have
The net effect
people
is
want to talk.
the density was reduced by 20% in order to achieve that form-based code requirement. Additionally, in order to achieve that form-based code requirement, we're having to install almost 20% more hardscape. When I say hardscape, I mean driveways, pavement, paving stalls, sidewalks, so on and so forth, in order to achieve that. I don't have your job tonight, but when I think of low country, I don't think of more hardscape. I think of more green space. And so that's what we try to achieve. I think that's reflected in the pictures that you have in our brochure. We like green space for the enjoyment of our residents. And so we saw the form-based code in that instance moving away from that. We always endeavor to provide the very best quality housing we can for the families that live there, such that we too ourselves would be comfortable in doing that. I'm just not sure But the form-based code helps us do that in the sense it's particularly given the fact that the balance of this development, the Malin Bluff development, the Pulte homes, et cetera, has not been built out with that in mind. It's not been built out with the form-based code. Our residents won't be able to walk and utilize the common area amenities of the Malin Bluff Pulte home development. It's a gated community. So if we're not trying to create a walkable district for that to occur because there's nowhere for them to go to. So that's, hopefully that helps answer some of your questions and concerns tonight. That is my endeavor to do so.
Well, I think what's going to be important is the items that are under conditional items to be discussed and that dialogue and that presentation to be made.
We are perfectly fine working with staff on form-based code questions.
Okay.
If the commission is prepared to allow that dialogue to continue with them. I've laid out what we'd like to do for the affordable housing. As to the public safety, that's a commitment of the overall development. Half an acre parcel for public safety. From my own experience on Hilton Head Island, most fire stations that we were working on over there were on parcels that were 2 to 3 acres in size. I'm not really sure what you can accomplish with a half an acre parcel for public safety, but regardless, that is the responsibility of the owner of the
All right,
development,
thank you.
not this particular parcel.
I got you. Thank you. All right, we have a number of public comments that have been requested. I've got a pack here. I hope I get everybody. If I don't, I'm sure you'll let me know. Did you want to say something, Mr. Greenway?
Yeah, I just need to clarify a couple things for the record, for you all, please.
Sure.
Just one thing is that, I want to make it clear that the design guidelines on the existing PUD and development agreement is no way grandfathered for this particular project. It's a new request. They are requesting an amendment to the development plan.
Correct.
Yeah,
So
okay.
there is no grandfathering under any form, shape, or imagination to the current plan. Once you amend something, it opens up everything. So the grandfathering is out the door, no vesting at that point. So make it clearer for that. So I will also want to point out to you all that the existing development agreement and PUD development plan allows some conversion of the commercial area in this area to residential. And it also provides for live-work arrangements. So you very well could have commercial downstairs and residential upstairs in the same area. Third thing, someone made a comment about shouldn't we see the DA before we act on this. Development agreement amendments is a contract between the county council and the developer, and really isn't something that the planning commission plays a role in from a land planning, comprehensive planning standpoint. So I don't know that that's necessary to hold this up for the DA to be amended with that. That'll be handled at the council level. Fourth thing, TIA analysis. It's very inappropriate, in my opinion, to use them when it benefits the situation and then to question them when it does not. The TIA in this particular case is very clear that there's going to be less traffic. It's proven throughout the country that apartments generate less traffic than standard retail, commercial, and Rob has done that analysis. He gave me that information. The traffic impact, if this rezoning goes through, and you all made that recommendation to county council, would be significantly less for multifamily than it would for commercial. We all know that. And then the final comment I have is that we, with regards to the current commercial plan of 207,000 square feet, I think you all should consider that in this entire corridor on the other side of 170, from Argent Boulevard all the way down to 278, is essentially at build out is going to be nothing but one continuous commercial development that Beaufort County has no real control over from a design standpoint and from a transportation standpoint. Our county council just committed several millions of dollars to taking care of transportation needs and improvements along 170 in this area, with Jasper County and Hardyville sitting just on the other side of 170 here. So you all should take that into consideration as well. I don't think ever the market would ever in this area, and we would not want the market to ever absorb this amount of commercial zoning in this corridor, because widening 170 would not be enough to carry the traffic that was needed, and there would not be enough public investment in infrastructure to carry that amount of traffic on 170 if that amount of commercial development occurs from Arja all the way down to 278. So those are just some comments that I have for you. Mostly the issue with the development agreement. I do not think you can hold up your recommendation based on that not being updated at this time. Thank you.
Thank you.
And could I ask Eric one thing? Given what you said earlier and just confirmed with the development agreement, how does that change staff recommendation number 3, which says that it's a condition of this approval?
Yeah, it is. I think.
But if it's not our business, how can that be a condition? I'm confused.
Well, Rob is giving you his full analysis, both for you and for county council. This will be transferred over to county council, and we will make that recommendation to county council that at the appropriate time, if they decide to act on this, that development agreement get updated to align with the requirements of the development plan.
Okay.
If that makes sense to you. So the conditions aren't just while they're in your analysis. The analysis isn't just for you, it's also for the county council to consider as well, since your recommendation and the staff recommendation goes to the county council after this, natural resources. So.
We can agree to disagree on that interpretation. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you. All right. Public comments. I've got 4 pieces of paper here. I'm just going to read them, the names off, and if you would just come up and you'd like to make any additional comments, please keep your comments to 3 minutes or less. I'm going to call first for Karen Flanders.
Good evening. My name is Karen Flanders. I live at 265 Malin Bluff. A couple of things. First of all, what Kevin had to say spoke from my heart, which basically was saying about the traffic that is in that area is just going to be outrageous. I think the last traffic study was in 2007, so perhaps that is one of the things that definitely needs to be in contingency. The other thing is, with 204 residences being put there, we're now looking at ×2 the amount of cars. So now you're at 408 cars within a 12-acre piece of property, and that's a lot of people. For Malin Bluff, we have common grounds. We have, or will have, a dock in order for our residents to be able to enjoy the river. Putting those people in front of us, and yes, we are a gated community, but keeping people out, going back to have access to that river is going to be impossible for us. The reason many of us build our homes there is for that reason, in order to be able to enjoy that area. And, you know, again, bringing the people more there is going to kind of step on our toes. I did not hear them say what would be the advantage for the existing homeowners for them building those properties in front of us. I didn't hear any. I really would like to have that be property in order for us to maybe have a coffee shop, to have a restaurant. So that's basically my concern.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Flanders. Glenn Giles.
Good evening. My name is Glenn Giles. I live at 244 Mayland Bluff Drive. The very beginning of this school year, I pulled a woman out of a car and administered first aid to her outside of Okatee Elementary School. She got hit broadside by a car that was going 60 miles an hour. Okay? Now add that there's going to be 1,000 cars in that area, additional. 345 units from Mayland Bluff and then 204 units from the apartments that are proposed to be built, all right? I used to be the chief operating officer of the District of Columbia. I know when numbers smell right, I know when numbers don't smell right, and the traffic study that I just heard, that number doesn't jive with what I see. If you look at an apartment complex, it's usually 1.5 to 1.75 cars per apartment. So you're not talking 200 cars, you're talking 300 cars in a very small, specific area. It's a public PUD. It was set to be that way, and it should be that way. I think another disaster is going to happen. I've seen multiple accidents there, but it's going to happen. And it's just, I don't understand how this got put through as a recommendation when there was information that wasn't completed and filled. Was there an environmental impact study done? Is there an economic impact study done on this also? I haven't heard any of that. I heard a fuzzy number, it's 60%. I heard fuzzy things and promises. It may be a gym, it may not be a gym, it may be this, it may be that. I have concerns. And I just moved here, and I moved here for that community the way that was set up, with commercial property in the front. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Giles. Harold Williams.
Evening, folks. My name is Harold Williams. I live at 274 Mayland Bluff Drive. Recently retired from Bridgestone. My biggest corporate structure now is making sure the USO office is volunteered open at 9 a.m. at Savannah Airport. I'm here retired. I have a written letter from our community. This doesn't present what I'm thinking, or not necessarily. The letter was submitted this evening to the planning committee that should be considered prior to voting. The letter from Mrs. Catherine Trail, and what the letter details is why the proposal violates South Carolina law and provides a copy of the case. I can understand why this is going on at all. I looked at this community. I'm from Atlanta. Hard and long, we decided to move down here. We love it. We have a delightful mixed community, a lot of military in it now, and we don't want it to change, and we want the retail shops to go in as was told to us.
Yes, sir. I have, by the way, a letter from Mrs. Catherine Trail regarding Osprey Point Mayland Bluff Plan due to development, and that will be made part of the public record.
One more thing, I'll move on, but I agree with everything Mr. Ed and Mrs. Dan said. That's exactly what the problems are. And what the plan is put in front of you guys, it's ludicrous. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Williams. And Harar, is it?
Absolutely. My name is Ann Harar, and I live at 314 Mayland Bluff. My husband and I moved here 6 months ago from Louisville to Kentucky, and we moved into this community based on the way the development was set out. We love the community the way it was designed. It is a mixed community. We have a number of school teachers there, military people, and a ton of kids. And part of the community, as we met and discussed this zoning change, was around the school. And the school teachers that live within our community were very concerned that they are already overcrowded and that this new construction would bring even more kids to the public schools that seem to be. I'm also concerned about the traffic. I don't know much about traffic studies, but I do know you take your life in your hands every time you pull out of that Malin Bluff as it is right now. And I can only imagine if we have 200 more families trying to get in and out of that particular spot. So I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Orr. All right, that is all the public comments that were turned into me. Are there other folks here from the Mayland Bluff area or would like to speak to the planning commission and have an opportunity to fill out a public comment card? Okay, hearing none. I'm going to open it back, bring it back up to the commissioners and any further comments, questions? Randolph?
First, I'd like to apologize. I don't know how I got this far. I'm the longest sitting commissioner, I was told today. And so I was there when Mayland Bluff was talked and discussed. We're not ponds. So you can do it this way, and then you can change the PUD that way, and then you can change this way. And no, let's bring it back because the economy is going to warrant it, or what have you. Workforce housing, yes. I see a 2-lane, 3-lane, 4-lane road running parallel to 170 there. Where are the kids going to cross? Then I'm telling you, oh, there's a wall there. That's a gated community behind them. They can't go use their facilities. So I look at capacity in schools. For a long way, my kids have grown up in Beaufort County system, starting at elementary school, and are successful because of that. Some of that is, I think the school board needs to, and I'm sorry if I get my little thing here. The school board needs to take a good look at what's capacity and what's not capacity. They're busing people in from areas that don't have schools and denying schools to places that need, where kids live close to schools. And I thought good urbanism and good planning calls for kids being able to walk to school or ride a bike. Same thing with shopping. If you just put a wall there and everything's apartments and houses, everybody is going to have to get in their car and go on 170 to get an ice cream cone at night. It's that simple. There needs to be some element of that in both places. Should have happened originally as well as right now, and I say that. Pervious versus impervious to planners, you can make that happen. I don't buy that, okay? You know what I'm talking about. I don't give you a piece of land, and if your instructions are make it meet the ordinance, you can make that happen. I see no walkability at all. I see kids trying to cross the road. They're, getting hit, like Mr. Giles or Mr. Williams, whichever one talked about. Yeah, thank you. That's just one of many lines. I'm sorry to go on. Kids need parks. And if their affordability, I agree. I don't believe, and never have, I'm a new urbanist, and when you all know my reputation, 20%, 40%, 60%, the more the mix of people and kids and families, the better the community. Okay, that's cut and dry. So you can't take, we had an example here where we're changing a community around, where you can take folks that aren't as fortunate financially, and you put them in a box. Then in the old days in New York, and excuse me, because I'm not from New York, we call those ghettos. All right, there needs to be a mix of economic and age and what have you. This is a tough decision because it's like, does it reduce traffic or not? We don't know. I say it doesn't because they only do AM hours and PM hours, and that's the traffic. Well, guess what? Mom's got a lot of honeydews to do. Okay, and if there's kids in those apartments and in Maitland Bluff, there's a lot more trips than what the TIA will show. So you got to look at that. Oh, honey, I forgot to get some, back to ice cream again or whatever. Or I got to go fill up, or I need to get my nails done or whatever. There's going to be a lot of traffic there, one way or the other. We hadn't heard anything about buffers. We haven't really seen the plan. In other municipalities that I work in, we get to see a little bit more than what we're seeing here right now. Once we vote on it one way or the other, unless we make conditions, then it's out of our hands. I do like to see a plan that I'm voting on, okay? I've got other things I'll say, but I'll let that stand right there. I think I've said what I need to say.
Thank you, Randall. Kevin, Frank, anything from you? Anybody else up here would like to add a comment?
I'd like to make a comment. Oh, you want to go? Is that Kevin or Frank?
Yeah.
Go, Frank.
Yeah. I just quickly, I just wanted to kind of pick up where Eric left off, you know, and just all of us need to be very, very well aware, like he said, this is not a grandfathering, you know, where it's, you know, just open up this little tiny window and take a peek in. This is going to open up this entire development agreement to, you know, once you open it up, it's open. And this may not be the end of it. I think Randolph, I have to say, I'm in violent agreement with Randolph. I just can't see a bunch of kids wanting to go get an ice cream cone, you know, and they're living in an apartment complex that's sitting right on 170. You know, Frank talks about bicycles and electric go-karts and everything else. Frank, you ain't using no golf cart over here. They're driving 60 miles an hour on there. The lady got up and spoke about the schools. I see that every day. It is unbelievable. It's got to be a 1 mile long line down 170. It's a 1-lane road while you pass that. You think there's an accident or something? No, that's just the traffic there. So I think this one is half-baked. I don't think it's anywhere near ready for consideration by anybody. It's a bunch of what-ifs and maybes and could-bes and would-bes and should-bes. Bottom line is, they bought this. They had a plan in place, and I say go ahead and go forward with the plan that you have that was approved 12 years ago. That's my take on the whole thing.
Thank you. Any other comments?
I guess my point is that I think everyone knows we need affordable housing, but as a matter of policy, we're privileging that and what you're saying, 120 units at the beginning, over a policy about school development and how many schools there are. So if you're going to have that many new families in a school that's already overcrowded, how does the affordable housing policy trump the need for schools to be, you know, as Randolph said, students in schools that are near to them? I mean, I just see that as in real conflict. And my point about the development agreement, and that I understand this is for us and for the county council, but I don't see how we cannot consider what needs to be done and the conditions that have to go into the development agreement before county council. I mean, that is our responsibility. I think it shouldn't be, actually. I think that issue should be resolved, and not as a condition, but as a point of fact. I too feel that the application is incomplete and unsatisfying for me, and I'm terribly sorry that members of the school administration and board aren't here. We heard that there is the superintendent and one member of the board. That's simply not enough for a question of this consideration and overfilling an already overfilled school.
All right. If there are no further comments, I'd like to have a motion.
I make a motion that the plan to change the zoning to allow multifamily units to be built instead of commercial, that's in the plan that exists today. I make a motion that be denied.
Do I have a second?
Frank, second.
I second it, Ed.
Okay, Frank? Thank you. All right. For any further last comments?
Yeah. Just point of personal privilege, could you be a little bit more clear on your motion, please?
Sure. My motion is that the application to change the zoning from commercial, 207,700 square feet, to replace that with multifamily units, 206, that application be denied.
Okay, very
and
good.
that the original plan is in effect. That's what's there. That's what they've agreed to. And we agreed to. County.
Okay,
I don't want to put words in your mouth, Kevin, but how about if you just make a motion that we deny the changes or recommend denial of the changes to PUD?
Okay, I'm fine with that.
That's just a little bit simpler if everybody's in agreement with that.
do you agree, Kevin?
I'm good. Yeah, no, that's good.
You want to
Thank
amend
you,
your,
Kate.
you want to restate his motion then?
I make a motion that the changes proposed to the PUD to go from commercial to multifamily units be denied.
All right, and that was seconded.
I second it.
Okay, by Frank. All right, all those in favor of the motion, please raise your hand. It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 for the motion. All those opposed? One opposed. The motion to amend the PUD amendment to replace 207,700 square feet commercial for multifamily units is denied by the Planning Commission.
If I may have a final comment.
Next issue.
Is there another one?
We've got two more.
Okay, well, I want to see.
Thank you.
And the third option.
Okay. The next issue. The next issue in front of us is the adoption of the 2020 Beaufort County Green Print Plan, as adding it as an appendix to the Envision Beaufort County 2040 Comprehensive Plan. You all have seen it, and it's 70-plus pages of text. And what was concluded in this particular set of documents was also a map and how to use the map. I must say the map wasn't immediately user-friendly, but you get used to it in a hurry. And to me, it's good or as better as the GI mapping system for land use. So I think it's a pretty extensive, comprehensive document, and I'd like to discuss it further. Thank you.
Yeah, and just to give you a little bit of background, the same consultant that we hired to do the comprehensive plan, kind of a few months into that, we also needed to have an update for a green print plan, and so we had the same consultant do that. We brought this forward, just as a reminder, to the Planning Commission back in March. At that time, we were not certain how we were going to adopt it, whether it was going to be part of the comprehensive plan or a standalone document. And what we're proposing now is for this to be adopted as an appendix to the comprehensive plan, similar as we did to the bicycle pedestrian plan. I have a quick presentation if you want a refresher of the green print. That's.
Does anybody want a refresher? No?
No, I'm
All right. No, thank you.
Yes, no?
No, thank you.
Okay.
We spent 2 years with it.
I know it.
So, yeah, I mean, and you all saw this back in March. So.
Right. Thank you. Any questions? Yes.
I think it's a great plan. Thanks for all your hard work and everybody that worked with you on it.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
I second that.
Absolutely.
I think the Coastal Conservation League in the earlier comments made mention of supporting that issue. I see Jesse is not here, so I just state that for the record. Is there anyone further who would like to address this particular issue? Okay, hearing none, do I have a motion?
Let her go for 4.
Don't be bashful.
You started. Go ahead.
I make a motion that.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, sorry. I make a motion that the planning committee adopt the 2020 Beaufort County Green Plan as an appendix to the Envision Beaufort County 2040 Comprehensive Plan.
I'll
Do
second.
I have a second?
I'll second.
Perfect. Any further comments? All those in favor of the motion, raise your hand. It's unanimous. Motion to adopt the 2020 Beaufort Comprehensive Green Print Plan as an appendix The comprehensive plan is approved. Thank you. All right. Moving right along, we have one other major issue. Zoning map amendment, a rezoning request for 19 rural and critical lands properties from various zonings to T1 Natural Preserve.
Okay, as you had mentioned, this is the request, this is actually a staff-initiated amendment to rezone 19 separate county-owned parcels. Some of them are jointly owned by the county and other entities from whatever the current zoning is. In most cases, it is T2 rural, but not in all. The request is all of them to be changed to T1 Natural Preserve. And of course, you're all aware, the county, this program has been in place since 2000, and since that time, we've preserved over 25,000 acres, either in fee simple, owned by the county, as land that the county owns, or retained by the private property owner, but preserved with a conservation easement. And this particular rezoning amendment only applies to those properties owned by the county. So in the cases, I believe there's a few cases where the county jointly owns them. One is with is it SCDNR or what?
Yeah, SCDNR and the Open Land Trust.
And the Open Land Trust. Those entities have been consulted and they are in favor of this as well. So,
Okay.
The property owners are all requesting this amendment. In general, T1 Natural Preserve is the county's lowest density district. In comparison, rural allows one dwelling unit per 3 acres. T1 Natural Preserve allows one dwelling unit per 10 acres. Primarily, it was created to apply to either preserve properties or to marsh islands that have no road access. One of the things that spurred this is that the town of Port Royal recently downzoned the Mobley Tract, which is in the town's jurisdiction. That was a request made by, kind of jointly with the county and with the Port Royal Sound Foundation. And we felt that that was a show of goodwill, that the county is serious about the preservation of these properties. One of the questions that arises is that many of these county-owned properties, some are currently developed as passive parks, some in the future we hope to develop as passive parks. We looked at many of what constitutes a passive park, and the T1 Natural Preserve, we did not see that as being a conflict because it allows for parks, playgrounds, and park facilities. And so, we believe that this will not tie the hands of the county when we're looking at developing some of these properties as passive parks.
Gotcha.
Stephanie Magid from our office is here if you have questions specifically about the passive parks program. We also have maps of each of the individual, showing the existing and proposed, and I could run through those if that's the wish of the planning commission.
At this time, but I have a two-part question for you. Do these 19 acquired properties through the Rural and Critical Lands Program represent the totality of acquired programs through the program, or are these cherry-picked programs?
No, it's not all of them. Because some of the fee simple properties are in local municipality jurisdictions, and so there's a handful that I'm going to be working with the municipalities for the rezoning of those. And then basically prior to 2010, everything that was acquired was already T1NP. As they were acquired, they were rezoned at the time of acquisition. And so then it's only been since about 2010 to now, there was just an oversight in getting the rezonings done.
Okay, and the second part of that question, then is it to become the standard for all of the properties in the future to be acquired through this program to be so labeled T1N?
It is the intent.
The intent. Okay, I was going to suggest if that's the case, why don't we just introduce something in the Community Development Code which says that?
Well, it has, anytime you change the zoning, it triggers a formal zoning amendment. So one of the things that we'll need to discuss as staff is something where we come in with batches. If we 2 years of land purchases, come in and request a rezoning or something like that. We already believe that with the Rural Critical Lands Program, the ordinance that we adopted has very specific safeguards. We believe this is just an additional step. So I don't think that there's any danger, if we decide to wait 2 years and then take whatever properties we purchased in that time forward for a rezoning. But it's not something that could happen, you would have to go through the formal process, go to planning commission, and so we don't want to add complexity to the rural critical lands every time a property is purchased. I think it's better to do that afterwards because you have decisions about spending of money, that ultimately is a council decision. So it'd be hard for the two to happen concurrently, and so that's why I'm suggesting that in the future we may want to.
Yeah, I would actually to examine that because I think the perception of the community is that these properties have been purchased through funds that they've provided through their tax structure are protected to the extent they can be. Now, this is not in perpetuity. There is a provision to take properties out of the passive park programs with a vote of council, very strict conditions, but I think going to a downzoning is an outstanding idea. I don't wonder why I wasn't thought of it sooner. And I would encourage you to do everything you can to make sure that it happens as quickly as possible for the perception of publics and further support, if you're seeking it, for further referendums, potentially for the Rural and Critical Lands Board.
Yeah, and I think it's important to note that the county has been very faithful with how we have treated these properties. And we have had one instance where, and actually this is right next door to the development we just reviewed.
Animal shelter.
The Okatee property, the county decided that that was a good location for the animal shelter. But rather than just build it on there, we actually switched money, and the money that particular property, that development, the footprint, took out of the Rural Critical Lands Program, we applied that to a purchase of an additional property. So we have had a very good track record in, the stewardship of these properties. But I think that every time that we take a step, to be faithful to the purpose of the program and to the public, we will do that.
I was a part of that swap out, so I remember that very vividly.
Good job.
Okay, I have.
Ask one question.
Yeah, go ahead.
Well, how do y'all intend to carry forward with property that's in private conservation easement?
Right now, it's not our intention to change the zoning. The conservation easements have the restrictive language that carries it into perpetuity. And so we're reluctant to, unless a property owner came forward and requested a downzoning, we don't really want.
Not going to focus on that. Yeah.
Private properties.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. Anybody have any questions of Stephanie or Rob? All right, I have a couple of public comments that I haven't read yet, I don't believe. I'm assuming they have to deal with this issue. I'll read your name, and if it does pertain to this issue, you'd like to make a comment, again, please come forward, give us your name along in 3 minutes. Carolyn Smith. I remember you, I let you in the building, didn't I?
Sir?
You were gonna go home early.
Yeah, I was gonna go home early. My name is Carolyn Smith, and I live in the Brighton Beach Alljoy area. And one of your 19 properties here is the Bailey Park, I believe. And I would just like to say that our community is very much in favor of the T1 natural zoning. And I didn't know there were 19 other ones on here tonight, but I think that would be a wonderful thing for the county. And just think, It doesn't produce traffic or anything else for you to have to worry about. So, I'm looking forward to, y'all approving this, and, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And I have Joseph Chappelle, is it?
Good evening, my name is Joseph Chappell. I'm here to represent Landmark Baptist Church on the corner of Chichessie and Sutler. And our only concern is how will this affect existing structures and also the surrounding neighborhood for this rezoning?
Okay. Stephanie, would you like to come up and address that? Or Rob, would you? I mean, whoever. Thank you.
Yeah, I believe, and I don't know if you could shed some light, is this a case of that they leased the property from the county?
Yes.
Yeah, so it would be treated like any other non-conforming use. And I believe that there's this, is it 20% expansion, that's permitted on the property. But,
There's no, the lease with the church is not going to be affected. The church is going to remain in its current place. I've actually been trying to contact the church, so I'm going to get your contact information here. Because the lease that we do have with that church needs to be updated severely. So it's quite old. But there's no impact to that facility being there on that property.
I mean, zoning is not, you would render it non-conforming at the worst case, it doesn't make it go away. And I don't know the details of that lease, but does that specify the future of that building or future expansion?
No, it's just, it stays as is.
That's the requirement of the lease?
Yeah, there's no
Okay, so I mean, if that's the case, it would have no impact on the church.
All right. Thank you. All right. Okay, I have no other further, I guess we have a couple of others here. Sarah, go ahead.
I won't be long.
Introduce yourself again, please.
Kendall Birch. I live in the Chichessie community. Of the 19 parcels that you're referring to, I'm surrounded by 5 of them. I'm smack dab in the middle, 3 of which I sold to the county. So I just want to say thank you very much. We very much are in favor of the rezoning to T1 Natural Preserve. I'll sleep much better at night. I feel much better about selling my property now than I ever have before. And I just hope and pray that you never touch it and you let it stay just the way it is. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. And one more, sir.
Good evening, my name is John Hewitt. I live at 1828 Caroline Avenue, and the main property I have is the question about the Alley Farm property. It actually extends from Carolina Shores all the way to McCallie Creek. And y'all are changing it from T1 to T1 Natural Preserve. The question, there was a conversation a few years ago about putting a public boat landing on that property. What does this do to that? Does this, I know you can do like natural parks and stuff, but what does this do to the boat landing? Because the master plan for Beaufort County was to put 120 space boat landing on that property. That's my question.
Yes, please. Come up, both of you.
I can answer the zoning side of it, and we can answer the.
Thank you.
The zoning would allow a boat landing. It falls into the category of parks and recreation facilities. But I believe that there's some site issues on Eiley Farm that would make that really difficult. I don't know if you want to speak to that, Stephanie.
Yeah, the boat landing was something that was considered quite some time ago. Due to the restrictive easement that we have with the MCAS on that property, they are not in favor of that type of activity due to the amount of people and right over the flight path of the jets. So I do not plan to move forward with a boat landing on that property. I currently actually don't have any plans for that except to keep it as open space at this time. It's kind of a lower tier priority in my work plan.
Okay. All right, I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, thank you. Yes. Ma'am, did you have?
Hi. So my name's Ann Vukovic, and we bought that house on Sam's Point, one that has been empty for like 30 years. And so we're like the only, so we don't belong to any association or anything. We're just we're our own neighborhood, and we're surrounded, and actually we share a driveway with the county that goes out into the woods and everything. And so I was kind of concerned when you say passive parks. Does that mean you're going to put a park in there eventually? If you're ever on Sam's Point Road, you would know what a nightmare that is, the traffic, and I was just really kind of concerned. We actually have people that drive there on our driveway to get there and hunt in there. So I have those questions.
All right.
And I have an answer.
Yes, go ahead, please.
So unfortunately, you must have purchased the property after we had already done the comprehensive or the conceptual plan. And I'm going to pull that up for you. So you live right next to the Pine View property. And we last year and this year finished a plan for that property. It actually moves our access north of the driveway. So the driveway currently exists right here, right in between our parcels.
Right.
I'm actually moving our access into our property. So your driveway will be your driveway and our driveway will be ours. And then we're gonna have a small park.
Traffic right there.
I understand. It's gonna be a small parking area with a restroom and then nature trails.
I want to thank you, but I'm just not.
I understand.
Traffic is terrible there.
I understand.
And not only that, but that intersection of Sam's Point and Sea Island Parkway. It's a mess. You can't even handle it.
I do understand. We have a lot of interest of the neighbors in the neighborhood in this area to have access to this property. It is 100 acres. So it is just going to be nature trails. It's not going to be any structures, no hunting. So once the park is developed, that element will end up disappearing from the property. But we do have a lot of interest from the citizens of Ladies Island, particularly for this parcel.
Right.
Yeah.
So is there a way, and I'm sorry for taking your time, but
no problem.
Is there a way we could have a meeting with you to figure out the driveway situation? Do you own, I think you own half of our driveway.
I believe the parcel line is right on the half there. At this time, the property is closed to the public, so the only people going in and out should be county staff.
That's not happening, but.
And if there is anybody going in and out, definitely call the sheriff.
Okay. There's a lot of hunting back there.
Yeah, call the sheriff.
There's a lot of hunting on all your properties.
I know. Call the sheriff.
It's kind of scary, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
I just don't know.
But this won't, the driveway change won't be done until I get the development permit to actually start building the park. No,
Will
we're
there be a
moving first.
follow-up meeting where we can see the before?
Yes, and this is online. You can go, this is right on our website.
I tried to navigate today and I couldn't navigate through it.
No problem. I have no problem.
To make you feel better, it's a lot better than what could have happened on that piece of property.
Yeah, I'm sure.
You're right.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Stephanie. Are there any other public comments on any of these properties? Yes, ma'am.
I can tell you about the infamous Highway 170.
Would you please tell us your name
My name
first?
is Janice Graves. I live on the adjoining property to what is now Passive Park, that is to be rezoned to be a nature preserve. But it took us an hour and a half to get here because of a wreck on 278 and one on 170. So I apologize, I didn't get to sign in. Anyway.
That's okay.
I have more questions and I hope you have answers. My family owns the surrounding property. I have a son who lives on the property, a daughter, and at the moment a grandson and his wife. How will this affect us? Is this going to be administered security-wise by the county, the state, or the federal? Will it be a county nature preserve, or a state nature preserve, or a federal nature preserve? I understand there are lots of requirements expected of the surrounding landowners for each type.
Okay. I don't know if we can answer all your questions tonight. Stephanie, do you want to try, or do you want to have a separate meeting?
Yes,
I believe you're referring to the Okeechobee River Park?
Yes.
Right,
Yes.
yes, sir. Yes, ma'am. So that is county-owned property, so it's going to be a county park that I manage. And it'll be a county park that I manage, so it's not federal and it's not state. It's owned and managed by us.
But it's going to be a nature preserve?
A passive park.
It's a passive park now, but it's in with these that's supposed to be rezoned
Right.
to a nature preserve. I don't,
So
so it's going to be both at the same time.
It's,
So I think you're confusing the zoning with the actual, the zoning that we're going to is T1 natural preserve.
Right.
That doesn't mean it's going to be a nature preserve per se, as you're thinking of, that the state or the federal government maintains. It's going to be a passive park. So there's going to be trails there for people to come. There's going to be a parking area. There's going to be a pavilion there eventually for people to have a picnic underneath, things like that. So it'll be a passive park more up toward the other end, up toward the commercial area at Pepper Hall.
I know exactly where it
Yeah,
is.
so that's where that'll be. It's not going to be a nature preserve. It's just going to be a park, a small 18-acre park.
There's not much nature left. They pretty much
Yes,
cut
ma'am.
the whole area.
Yes,
So
Yes,
the
ma'am.
other problem, concern we have is we are already getting sightseers. What kind of protection are the property owners who live there and have lived there forever of the people coming over from the passive park onto our property? Will the county build a fence, a privacy fence for?
We will not build a privacy fence. If there's people coming onto your property, it'd be just like any other law that governs property. People don't have a right to come on your property just because it's adjacent to a park. You just need to call the sheriff's office and say, hey, I got trespassers on my property. They'll come out. If they catch them, they'll write them a ticket. But you got to call the sheriff.
Okay, my other question is, how does that affect my ability to, or my children or my grandchildren in the future, to do something with the property?
Won't affect your children's or your ability to do anything with your property, because your property will stay whatever it's currently zoned, and you'll be able to develop.
Zoning will not change your mind.
The zoning will not change on your property, and what's going on this property will have no impact on what you're able to do on your property.
Okay, thank
Okay.
you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
My name is Agnes Pinckney and I live down in.
I'm sorry, I can't hear you.
Agnes Pinckney.
Okay. Please speak.
4 or 5 generations here in Beaufort County. I have 100 acres down there and 59 acres the point, what we call the point down at the very end. My concern right now is what is going to be in this passive park? Besides, is it just going to be running trails? What's going to be down there as to what kind of traffic? Because all this traffic that's going to this park is going to be running right through the middle of my property. Down Pinckney County Road. How am I going to handle that with all that traffic? And the other question I had too was what kind of security, if there is going to be any security down there during the day or nighttime, once you open this park in there.
Stephanie?
So typically, most of our parks are managed by an auto time gate that closes at dusk, a little bit later in times of the year like this when it gets darker much earlier, and opens at dawn. So this, but again, it's the same situation. If there's people coming on the property that are causing security issues for your property, you just need to call the law enforcement division.
Because I think you've had to replace that gate several times down there. People are not abiding by the fact that there is a gate going down there. They go around it or they knock it down or whatever. And my whole family, we've been down there 4 generations. and they're all down there, and I'm just concerned with the security as to what this is going to
I
do
understand.
down there where we all are, and it's all open farmland that's down there.
Stephanie, did you want to add anything to your comments?
Just typically the passive parks, if you go to a place like Widgeon Point or Crystal Lake, you know, that's very typical of a passive park. It's an entrance with a gate, a small parking area, pervious pavement, usually some kind of amenity like a picnic pavilion or a bird blind or a wildlife observation area, and nature trails through the woods. So it's very low key. Typically, when people start visiting a park and take ownership of that park, you end up seeing some of this element, this nefarious element, go away. It's because there's more eyes on the park. There's more people reporting things to not only me, but the sheriff's office. So there's a sense of community around a park once it actually gets open and established. I can tell you specifically for Pinckney Point, yes, there's issues there. I work with the sheriff's office on a weekly basis just about, but that property is actually not in the planning stages probably for a few years. We have a couple issues we have to work out with the road. So we won't be able to open that up as a passive park until we get a road issue worked out.
Canada, I'd be glad that my husband doesn't stay your cows, because the cow can cross on that road. The fields across to get to the dairy to be milked.
Thank you.
We might put some.
All right, do we have any other public comments? All right, hearing none, bring this back up to the commission. Any comments, further comments here before we make a motion? Hearing none, do I have a motion on this issue?
I'll do it if you want me to.
Sure, go ahead.
I'll make a motion that we recommend approving the zoning map amendments to, for the 19 rural and critical lands properties.
All right, I have a second. I have a second. All right, any other comments? All those in favor of the motion? I have 6. Any of those opposed?
Kevin.
And Kevin is.
I'm in favor, Adam.
Oh, okay, I didn't see your hand, sorry. It says unanimous, it's approved unanimously. The zoning map amendment for the 19 rural and critical lands properties. I just want to add one final comment to that. I'm tickled pink that this is happening. I was a part of the Rural and Critical Lands Preservation Board for 10 years. Like I said earlier, I wish this had happened sooner. You've expanded my confidence greatly in the preservation of these lands, and I'm hoping that there'll be many more. Thank you. All right, and that's the end of the issues for the night. I have just one closing issue to, and maybe Ron, you can do this if you would. We have a new deputy director in the county, and I'd like our director to introduce him.
Okay, yes. Yes, we just starting today, went through orientation, and we have a new deputy director, as you mentioned, Mark Davis. He comes to us from Dorchester County, and we are excited in the planning department.
Come on up and be recognized by the public on the screen.
Deputy Director of Planning.
Yeah, but we're very excited. I think that, this has been, we've completed a comprehensive plan. We kind of have an idea about what we want to do in the future. And now I think having a good staff on board to carry out these plans is, we're excited about the following year. And I don't know if you want to say a few words.
I look forward to working with you all. I had an opportunity to meet with you and get to know a little bit about you earlier. Look forward to learning more and getting to know you even better.
Well, you're probably also talking to thousands of people who will see this over time. All right.
Thousands.
Thank you very much. We're so pleased to have you on this.
Thanks, Mark.
To further enshrine our outstanding community development department.
Yep.
So thank you very much. I have no further things to discuss. Does anybody would,
Once we adjourn, I'm gonna ask the two members on the Zoom to stay on, and I'd like for you all to stay seated, please. There's a few things that I'd like to mention to you all.
all right. All right, hearing no further business for the meeting, I'll call this meeting adjourned.